Welcome back to the Politik Voice podcast. My name is Aaron Woodman,
Hello, everyone. Will Javian Dawson.
and we are here to talk about the Utica Common Council.
And today we have a special guest. Her name is Heather Wazalewski, who is actually a longtime servant of the city of Utica, has volunteered and participated in many events and many roles. She runs the South Utica Neighborhood Association, wears a lot of hats, and also is the founder of a website called everyvoiceutica.org.
So yeah, my name's Heather Wazalewski, and I am from Utica. I was born here. I left when I was younger, came back when I was 24 because Utica has always felt like home to me. And I am married here. I have a son who's joining us today for sitting back playing his video game. You know, we have an active family. We're very involved in the community.
How did you get involved in civic education or civic engagement?
So during COVID, I wanted to create instead of my little library, a sled shed. So that there was a place where kids could go and get sleds. Because at the Parkway, Ivan, I remember as a kid, I didn't have a sled, so we would take cardboard, plastic, whatever we could find. So I was, who do I contact for something like this? I know nothing. So I contacted one of my friends who's a councilwoman. She was in the first ward, but I thought she was maybe my council person too, because I didn't know. And she said, contact your council person. Here's who it is, and talk to them. So I contacted my council person. She says, write a proposal out for it. And it ended up being we couldn't do it because it was an insurance issue with the city. So I was like, okay, that's fine. But she kept in contact with me. And we were walking up to the Eagle one day. Do you know what the Eagle, where the switchbacks are by the golf course, Valley View? There's this beautiful, cars fly up through there.
Behind the ski slope.
Yes. So cars fly back and forth up there, and we have our son up there, people walk up there, and I said to her, how do we stop traffic? It's got a speed limit, but they're flying up there. So she said, she goes, I could ask, but it would be better if you went to the Common Council and spoke. And I was like, okay, I don't understand any of this, but yes, I'll do it. So I wrote up my reason and why I thought it was a safety issue, and that was kind of it. So she calls me a month later and she goes, they're putting speed bumps up there. And I was like, yes. I go, man, what got me going with that was the fact that, wow, all I did was ask. And I got it. I'm not saying it's going to happen all the time. And I go, oh my gosh, we have power in this community. I have power. And that's when I started, I'm interested. I want to know more about this. What do I do with all of this? So I then started going to council meetings. I started getting involved in things in the community, events, meeting people. Because I lived here when I was younger, but only until I was 8. So I don't have any friends. I literally had to start fresh. And it was from there that I started telling people, you can go to the council and do public comment and ask, literally ask for things. And so that was kind of it. I started working on campaigns and doing that type of work. And I do a lot of free, volunteer work. So, and that's kind of what brought me to where I am now, which is every voice.
Why do you feel civic engagement is important? And you kind of touched on that.
Yeah, it's
your
important.
Voice, power, so.
It's because a lot of people, I think there's an intimidation factor first, that they think the council and the mayor and all of that, it's an intimidation thing, but they actually work for us. We pay taxes for them to work for us. Exactly. And I want people to understand that. So one of the important things is that you can ask for things. Each of you, everybody in Utica has what's called an advocate. It's called a council person in your ward. People don't even know that. They don't know they have a ward. They don't know they have a council person. But you actually have 4 people that work for you. 3 of them that are an at-large and one's your council person. People have an opportunity to wonder why their grass is not being cut, why their roads are not being done. These are things that you can come forward and talk about and ask for. And that's what I wanted people to do. When I knocked on doors for campaigns, they would talk about all of the stuff within the city that they didn't know who to ask. Or when I was at the pantry, they didn't know, who do I contact about my door falling off and no one fixing, or a bad landlord. There are people. And that's when I was like, gosh, no one knows that we have a council. No one knows we have advocates for them. I want to teach the community about that. I want them to have a voice, and I want them to know that they have power. If the city could just grasp that one little feeling I had when they had the speed bump and understand that you can go ask for things and make a difference, I feel that that will change a lot for us. And I feel we're kind of a little bit getting there right now, small bit. But that's what really got me, was when people were asking the most simple, basic things that we should receive as a community that they were not receiving. And saying, you can ask for it. You have a council person. If they're not doing it, you go to your at-large. If they're not doing it, you go speak at public comment. Because when you speak at public comment, it creates what's called like a receipt. It's always on file when you're there. So you can come back and go, I've spoke to this person. I have done X, Y, and Z, and I've come to all of you. Why are you not helping me? You know, and that's what I want people to understand. Because after a while, you will get things done. My whole life, I grew up in low income with a single father. So I know what it's like not to have a voice. I know what it's like not to be heard. And if I could do one thing for the rest of my life, is teach people how to use their voice and show them how to do it and empower that, then I will live fulfilled. When I took my DNA test, I had found out that I had family who served on the council for 20 years in the 40s and 50s. I could not figure out where this energy was coming from within me. I could not figure out why does this mean so much to me? Not even because of how I grew up, but it was then that when I found out that I had family who had served in our community and had did really valuable things, right there I felt unstoppable after that. I go, now I know where it's coming from. And it was as if I had changed that day, as if I had really found who I was and why I was so passionate about this. It was like, it was life-changing for me.
It's like in your blood.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, this makes sense. And for once, the ground underneath me felt flat and I felt rooted. And now I just can't stop. I feel powerful almost, as in a way that I feel like I can make a difference. Not because of that, because I have roots here that have done things in the community, and I have family who volunteer here, and it just it made me feel more alive than sad. So it's like,
that's really good. And I always say, like, when you actually are passionate about something, that's how you know, like, that is part of your calling, especially if it fuels you.
Yeah.
Because you're doing all of this, but do you ever feel like a lack of energy doing it?
No,
I
get
fueled.
I stay up all hours. I love going to events. I have a hard time turning things down. What can I do more?
Right.
So what I want to know is, what made you want to focus on the Common Council as that specific area of local politics out of the other?
I feel it's more controllable. We can control this a little bit more, and I feel like if we can build a good foundation here, then we can start building it up. You know, because our council goes to the mayor goes to our county exec. So if we are more involved and everyone, those voices carry up. And I feel like that is a really, I don't feel like we focus enough at the local level. Yes, we should focus in congressional and presidential. Yes, we all should be a part of that and we should vote for it. But this is our city. And we should be making sure that our people are working for not a select few, but for all of us. You can ask for your roads to be fixed. They do create laws, and they do create ordinances. They do a lot for the city. To have an ordinance made or something in legislation, you can go to your council person about something. They can create ordinance. For example, it's a whole controversial thing in South Utica, which is not even a big concern, but someone doesn't like a traffic island that was built in front of their house. They want it gone. They go to their council person. Their council person then creates an ordinance. The ordinance goes through the council, and then they vote on it. And the council will either vote to have it removed or not removed. And that's the power that they have. As a constituent, you can go to them and ask them for things. And they may not do anything, but if it comes with enough people, they will move. They want your vote. Right. They'll do it.
And I guess a good question to that would be, like, if you had to break it down, like, what is Common Council?
Okay, so the Common Council is made up of 9 council members. We have 6 wards in the city of Utica, 6 areas, and they are each represented by 1 council person. And they are termed for 4 years. So they can't serve that same position again, or 8 years, I'm sorry, again. And then there's at-large, there's 3 at-large, and they cover the entire city. So now you have your 1 council person for each ward, then you have 3 who cover the entire city. And so we want to put those guys to work more. I love you all, but we want to get them more we want to hold them more accountable for things as well. Then we have what's a council president. Now, they can't vote on anything but they hold order, and they can be a tiebreaker for a vote. So the council can, infrastructure, things with codes, they could change maps, but the big thing is they're in charge of our budget. So they vote on our budget. So when we have a budget, every year when the budget comes through and the property tax is going up or whatever, they're a part of that decision. If the sewage tax has to go up, the council will be the one that makes the final decision on if we're going to raise rates on things. So they hold a lot of power. The mayor doesn't. The mayor can create a legislation, but have it brought down to the council and they have to vote on it. The other power that the mayor has is he can veto. So if the council passes through something and the mayor's like, don't like it, it comes back to the council again, and a majority vote of 6 has to be able to override it for him to, or her.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
It sounds similar to like the legislative branch and
It is.
executive branch.
It is.
The balance of power.
It is. And we have some committees, like councils have what's called, they divide up their councilmen into different committees, roads, things like that, public safety. They're all divided, but we have, and we're probably one of the only cities that have what's called a committee of a whole, where they don't take them and divide them up into committees, they do it all together. A lot of council people feel like if they divide up in committees and it's something to do in their ward, then they don't have any say over it. So this council, again, I think has voted again to not have committees and do what's called the committee structure of a committee of a whole, so that they're all part of the decision making and they're all together. Because if one group's on public safety, the other ones don't really have a lot to input on it because they're not part of that group.
Right.
So we, like Syracuse doesn't have it, Rome doesn't have it, but Utica does. So they have what's called the committee of a whole.
Okay. And let's have a little more in like the difference between like council at large and then council by ward districts. So it's my understanding that like people who live in a certain ward can vote for that person running.
Yes. So if you live in a certain ward, you can only, I can't vote for a council person in first ward because I'm in Ward 3.
Yeah.
So I can only vote for the council person in my ward, and then I can vote for 3 at large. So I can do that. I'm like my hands, like I'm sign language.
That's
so
good.
each ward has a person that they can vote for in their ward. It's usually there's a Democrat and a Republican, sometimes an independent, and they can vote on whatever of those 3, and then they can vote for 3 at large. So that's how that voting works for that.
And what's the power like difference between like wards and at large?
There really isn't.
No?
They all vote on the same thing, but at large has a larger responsibility of being there throughout the city. And that is the one thing that this city needs to hold them accountable for, is we need to see them at events more. We need to see their face. That's what we have to pay attention to as well, is when you're voting, is look for your council person. Where have they been? Do they have a social media? Do they have a newsletter? Do they come to events where, so at large and is an important one because they cover the entire city.
And another follow-up with that is when it comes to putting up legislation. So is there what's like the process for that?
If I'm correct, I'm hoping I'm correct, and I think I am. They will write up their legislation, bring it to the clerk, and the clerk will put it in the correct format for them. Then the clerk will present it to the council. The council will then decide if they are going to put it in committee or not, which means committees where things sit before they're voted on. So the council will go over it together. They'll bring in the people that they should talk to and ask questions to, whether it's a budget director, whether it's the chief of police, whatever they need, those people will be in there. They'll decide to keep it in committee, and then they can vote on it at any time.
Yeah, it's like you said, if it gets passed, it goes to the mayor's
Yeah,
office.
and if people are not paying attention, it goes to the mayor's office, and the mayor has 4 days to veto it. If he doesn't within those 4 days, then it automatically passes, and he obviously signs it, the council president will sign it, and it's a new law. So what's important, and I'm gonna tell everybody who's listening and you guys, is that things are being passed all the time, and you guys have no idea. I mean, if you go to what's called Ecode 360 for Utica, I was going through there just looking at legislation. Do you know we have a legislation still in there that it's against the law to spit on the sidewalk? It is against the law to spit on the sidewalk in the city. Yeah, it's been there since probably the 40s. But but every day there's things that are passing. So if no one's paying attention to the new cannabis law that could pass, you're going to be surprised big
How
time
many people are
with
gonna-
that. So, I mean, it's not even just the cannabis one. There's little things that happen all the time. And if you're not paying attention and you're not involved, it will It will keep happening. It's example for streets being paved. There are areas of the city that are not going to be paved this year, and you have to advocate for that. So,
Right. So
Yeah.
would you agree that without proper representation, that side of town or that area that is lacking the voice is going to be kind of
yeah, because if you're a low voting area, if your person is not doing enough for you, I would say yes. I definitely think so. You want to make sure that your council person is speaking for your entire ward and always being that voice and representing you.
I also want to ask more about the public comment
Yeah.
thing. Like
I
that's
love that. That's my favorite part of it.
Yeah, that's the part where
So,
you advocate. So
yeah.
how do you like sign up?
Okay.
Or is there a process?
No, there is. There's
Yeah.
a little bit, and I'm actually doing a video about it soon. You just go in, and you have to get there a little bit before 7, and there's a podium. You have to walk all the way in front of the council. So you're walking by them as they're having a meeting, which is not comfortable. And you sign in, and you get 3 minutes to speak, and they will time you on it. So my recommendation is for council is there is emotions, but get right to the facts. You have 3 minutes to talk about it, and get as many people as you can to come with you on it. Because public comment it's recorded live on YouTube, and it's always there. It's a receipt for you that you went and spoke about it, and it gets the ball rolling. Council members will either not talk to you about it afterwards, or they will. But it depends on how strong you are with it. I want emotion there, but also you have 3 minutes. So lay it out. I recommend that you email them what you are going to talk about. Do a handout for them, give them everything they can, and leave with your give them your information too. But public comment's easy. What's easy, it's just intimidating. You go in there, you sign up, and you get 3 minutes to speak at 7 o'clock. Public comment is the first thing they do before they vote on something. So if you're there about something they might vote on that night, then it would be really great to do public comment, because you could sway somebody that night. So you could either go to the cityofutica.com, or you can go to everyvoiceutica.org and click on meetings, and every time there's a meeting, which is the first Wednesday and third Wednesday of every month, there's a meeting, and they start at 6, which is called a pre-meeting. The pre-meeting will go over basically anything that's in committee and what they're probably going to vote on at the 7 o'clock meeting. So I do recommend that you kind of use the time to go to both or watch it. But if you can't make both, make the 7 o'clock, because that's where you can do public comment and hear what people are voting on.
And let's talk more about the Every Voice. How did that start? What motivated you to say, all right, let's make this Every Voice platform to educate people on the
Campaigning
common,
did.
And
on the
also,
common council?
what is Every Voice?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
It is a nonpartisan page that teaches you about local politics. It gives you just the facts.
Could you explain to them what nonpartisan means?
Nonpartisan is not taking either side, basically. You are just in the middle there. I guess that's how you could say it.
Neutral.
Yeah, I am partisan personally, outside of Every Voice. I have my
Right.
beliefs, I have things that I strive for, and a party that I believe in. However, we created this to give people the option to decide for themselves.
Right.
And that's what nonpartisan is, we don't take sides.
So basically, it's unbiased.
Yeah.
You want to present the facts,
Yep.
the data, the evidence, whatever,
Yep.
and let people decide on their own.
Yes,
right?
that's what I want.
Right, for
And you
sure.
asked me how I got there, was campaigning.
Right.
So when I was knocking on doors or talking to people on the phone or at events, I was telling people how to vote almost. And which isn't a bad thing. If you please do that, campaign, join campaigns, be a part of it. But there were people who I knew they weren't going to vote.
Right.
And they weren't going to vote because they didn't understand the process.
Right.
They've heard people knock on their door 100 times. They didn't understand how things were going. And I was like, gosh, who am I to tell you this? We're
Right.
missing this part in the city that teaches people how to. We don't have civic engagement in school
Right.
anymore. We have nothing that teaches people about civic engagement.
That's true.
And people are grasping at straws. And even people who are regular voters are just voting on what they hear. Oh, that person's a nice guy. She's a nice person. La la la. And I'm like, no, let's create a place that will show you about all of that,
Right.
and then you can make that decision from there. And it's interesting because I do have both parties commenting and being a part of it and signing up for the newsletter, and that's cool because now I'm doing my job, right? I think I'm doing that. Or more people come to public comment, and if I was so excited, I felt famous the other day, and one person only said this to me, and they're like, "Hi, I follow your every voice, and I think what you're doing is great, and you're breaking it down so people can understand it. And I'm like, oh my God, like this, I can just hear that one thing for the rest of the year. And I was like, called my husband. I'm like, oh my gosh, someone thanked me, and I can't believe this. I feel famous.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
But no,
Yeah.
campaigning really opened my eyes to the city and really said, wow, we are missing something. I'm not saying everyone's going to join Every Voice. It's going to be this big, happy world, and people are going to start voting. But it will be an outlet for somebody who didn't understand it. And if I do that with one or two people, if I get a couple people that show up to public comment, I'm happy with that. If people are sharing things or messaging, I'm doing something. And it's moving the needle a little bit.
Yeah.
So
That's good, and that's very important because, as you mentioned earlier, there's just a lack of education, especially in this community. So when it comes to stuff like going to public comment or going to the council meetings, people don't even know they exist. They don't know who to talk to and stuff like that. So Every Voice sounds like it's a platform for people to go to actually learn about the Common Council, correct?
Yep,
Is it
that's
just
it.
geared towards?
right now it is.
Okay,
Yeah,
good, good.
right now, because I literally left my job. I was a director of the Utica Food Pantry, and I left everything to take this on. So I don't make anything off it or anything right now. At the moment, I don't want to at this
It's
point
just
yet.
a pure passion.
It's just something that I feel I
That's good.
needed
That's
to do.
good.
I like I told you earlier, I could die and be happy to know that I'm making a difference in my way. There's this book called The Tipping Point. I don't know if I posted it on Facebook, and it's about people who connectors in the community. And I'm a connector. I love connecting people and teaching people how things work and meeting people and building that bridge.
Right.
For like, I live in South Utica, which is the best part of the city. Everyone knows our biggest complaint is like candy wrappers on the ground or
Oh,
something.
wow.
But to connect the bridge of the city, connect these parts of the city together, because right now they're not connected. If we could do that, that would be huge for us. And building those bridges is something I like doing. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it's like you notice like there's a lack of like civic education specifically for the Common Council, and you want to provide a resource
Yeah.
to help make sure that the people know about the Common Council and that they stay educated
and
on
stay
it.
a part of it and continue to hold them accountable. We're voting people into office that are supposed to advocate for us. They work for us. I need to tell people a million times, don't be intimidated. We pay for them to sit there. We pay for them to do what they're doing. So I don't feel intimidated, not that I'm some big, but I feel like they work for me. So I will try to advocate for things I believe in, and I will ask for things. I may not get them, but I will use my voice in the best way I can, because this is my city, and I love it, and I grew up here, and we deserve to have everything that we can.
And the information that you like look to present to people, like how do you determine what information to present to people? Like
It's so hard.
Yeah.
There's so many things. There's so many things they put in committee, and some of it's like silly things, like for like a change of a road sign or something. So I look at the overall, like that what will affect the entire city. Like we just asked for a bond for $22 million to fix the sewage area, and ended up, but now with grants and everything, it's going to cost $11 million. So my question is what areas of the city are going to see this $11 million, and where are we? And I was able to get those answers. You know, West Utica is going to get a lot of new sewage infrastructure fixed, which is great, which stops flooding and things of that nature. So I kind of try to pick things that have a big effect on the city, and not the smaller things. But I let people know what's in committee and what's happening, but it's usually the larger scale things that I try to, like the budget was a big one. That took up 3 months of no sleep for me, because that ended up being a big property tax increase for the city. So that affects renters, it affects people on fixed income, so, things like that. So, and letting people know that you have an option to come in and speak on behalf of that. And when people don't, I try not to get upset, but I'm just like, if we could just get it. But it's moving the needle a little bit at a time. So
Okay. And this is like started on social media and now has developed into a website. Tell us more about that. Why did you decide to make a website?
we don't have a home. So I would write, I would work so hard writing about the council and all the information and things that happen. And the only way you can find it is if you go back through Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. So I wanted to have a place where you could find it all. So you can go back to the news, go back and look at old agendas, things like that. So I wanted to have a home. It's not necessarily something with doors and windows, but it's our home.
It's a landing page.
Yeah.
It's a
And
platform.
yeah, it's mine. It's my little
That's
thing.
great.
So I'm very fortunate. My husband is a web developer.
Oh,
So,
nice.
I had this vision and it took about 5 months, but he made it for me. And the biggest part of the site that we love the most is the Find Your Voice part, where you can go in there and put your address in. And as soon as you do, your council person, it'll come up who your council person is, what ward you're in, and who your at-large is with all their contact information. So you can go right on there right now, everyvoiceutica.org, type in your address, and it will find you and your ward and who your council people are.
Okay.
And that seems like not a lot, but that's a little bit, because most of the city doesn't know that we have that, or who their council person is, or even what ward they live in. So we developed that. So that was the first big step for us. And I was happy my husband could make that for me, because I could not.
That's pretty awesome.
So-
how do you direct traffic to the website?
Social media.
Social
right now,
media,
yeah.
okay.
Right now is social media, and it's been good. Not wonderful, but good.
That's
You
good.
know, people are putting in addresses and looking up who their council person is. They're looking up the agenda. So, but we have to constantly be on social media and
Gotcha.
constantly making videos, and
Right.
because people are different ways to attract them. So I wanted to cover everything: a newsletter, social media, videos, TikTok, and a website. So it's a lot of work, and I do this by myself. So this is a one person, so I'm busy every day trying to do all the work for this and write up the newsletters. But something you said in a past podcast that I always agree with and that I liked was, I think in your first one, going to events. You have to be in the public a lot. To be able to understand it and engage and get people involved, you really have to be in the public and go to events and be a part of things, paying attention to what's happening in your community. That was such a valuable thing for me. I have so many amazing friends that I have made in the past few years that I would have never made, and that have been life-changing for me.
Do people have to pay to use this
No,
website?
the website's free. No, you don't have to pay for it. It doesn't collect any personal information either. The only thing it collects is an email.
And that's
with
also
it.
optional, correct? If
Yeah,
people
you don't
wanted
have to sign up.
subscribe.
Yeah, if you
Okay.
want to, it's completely up to you. There's a little thing at the bottom. Most importantly, our website translates to all languages,
All
which was very
languages.
important because
Okay.
we are in such a diverse city.
Right.
So we do have the website translated as well.
Yeah, and if someone they had suggestions or feedback, of course, as you try this out, how would people want to?
They can email us, and I love feedback because that's the only way we're going to grow. So if there's people, the newsletter wasn't something I was going to do actually, and someone said to me, I love newsletters, and the more people said, are you going to have a newsletter? And I was like, okay, we're going to have a newsletter, and so I love feedback. I'm good with constructive criticism.
What would be one final message that you want to let people know about yourself and the work that you're doing in the community? What would be the takeaway that people should have?
Think outside your bubble. When you're voting and you're being a part of things, think of the whole picture. My thing is to connect more. Go to events, talk to people, get to know people, understand your city. Understand that sometimes the things you want aren't necessarily what everybody wants. Understand that there are people who are struggling here and want to be heard. And pay attention to who your council person is most of all. Pay attention to them and make sure that they are doing the work for you. I think it's really important now for our kids, the future of our city and the direction it's going in, that we are paying attention to what's happening because it will make our community stronger. We have a lot of people who have a lot of interesting things to say, who need a lot but don't know how to do it. And I think that's important that they pay attention to what's going on around them. Yeah.
Thank you so much for
So-
being on our podcast.
Yeah, thank you. This was great. I had
Yeah.
fun. Kads, you did good over there. Okay, so I'm Heather Wazalewski, the founder of Every Voice, everyvoiceutica.org. That's where you can go on there, learn about our mission, sign up for our newsletter. You can find out everything that's happening in the Common Council. And our goal is to keep you guys plugged into what's happening within the city and teach you how to use your voice in the city. And that's it. Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for watching this podcast episode. Thank you so much, Heather, for being our first guest to talk about the Utica Common Council and educating us about it, as well as educating us on the resources that people can use to learn more about it and keep up to date with what they're doing. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Take care, everyone.